Part 5. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 41. Owner. Xiaqiangxiu was extremely happy and hurriedly turned her head to look, and sure enough she found an additional figure next to her. At this time, Qin Mu changed into a loose dragon robe, and the purple gold crown on his head was also removed. His black hair was draped casually on his shoulders. He looked majestic, noble, and elegant. "Master, you finally came to see my slave." Xiaqiangxiu pouted her ruddy and attractive little mouth and said in a slightly aggrieved voice. Her eyes were watery and seemed to contain tears, and she was about to cry, revealing a charming charm, full of admiration and fascination. "Good." Qin Mu smiled and waved his sleeves, and the chains on Xiaqiangxiu's body were instantly released. Xiaqiangxiu regained her freedom and immediately knelt down obediently on the ground. She raised her head slightly, with a charming look in her eyes. She looked at Qin Mu expectantly, waiting for Qin Mu's order. Qin Mu stretched out his index finger and hooked it, and Xiaqiangxiu immediately crawled to Qin Mu obediently. Then she raised her little face and looked at Qin Mu with a pious expression. Qin Mu raised the corner of his mouth slightly, stretched out his right hand to caress her soft cheek, and said softly, "What a beautiful face." "Really? Master?" Hearing Qin Mu's praise, Xiaqiangxiu suddenly looked shy, her face flushed, and her heartbeat quickened. Her eyes were as bright as stars, full of happiness and joy, as if she had found her destination. At this moment, Xiaqiangxiu only felt that she was the happiest person in the world. "Of course it's true." Qin Mu looked at Xiaqiangxiu tenderly, his eyes as tender as water. "Owner." Xiaqiangxiu couldn't help but call out, her voice soft to the bone. Her heart beat faster, 2 blushes appeared on her face, and her whole heart was beating fast. "So are you willing to give everything for me?" Qin Mu leaned down and asked softly in Xiaqiangxiu's ear. For the master, the slave is willing to do anything." Xiaqiangxiu nodded in agreement without hesitation, with firm eyes and a touch of intense heat. Qin Mu smiled lightly. "If I asked you to deal with Empress Can you, would you be willing?" He continued to ask. "Willing." Xiaqiangxiu answered directly without thinking about it. "Good." Qin Mu nodded, a cold light flashing across his eyes. "From today on, you are the deputy commander of the Dark God Guard, responsible for monitoring Empress Can you. If you have any information, report it to me immediately." Qin Mu said indifferently. "Yes, master." Xiaqiangxiu respectfully agreed. Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction. That's right, he plans to return Xiaqiangxiu to the Canyu dynasty and be responsible for monitoring the Canyu Empress. Although Qin Mu's current trump card is enough to cope with the siege of Canyu dynasty and Xuanhuan dynasty. But if it could be more secure, Qin Mu would naturally not mind. It's always better to be more prepared. As a time traveler, Qin Mu knows the importance of caution on the battlefield and should never be careless and underestimate the enemy at any time. Go Dao is the kingly way. With Xiaqiangxiu working within the Canyu dynasty, he would be able to easily know the other party's movements, make targeted arrangements, ensure nothing goes wrong, and control the overall situation. "Master, should I go back now?" Xiaqiangxiu was a little reluctant to leave, her beautiful eyes were looking forward to her, full of reluctance. Qin Mu nodded slightly. "When you see Empress Can you, do you know what you should say?" Xiaqiangxiu nodded repeatedly. "I know, Nuer said that he was ambushed by the Qianyuan dynasty. All the 2 worshippers died in the battle, and only Nuer escaped by chance. He framed this incident and blamed it on the Qianyuan dynasty." After saying that, Xiaqiangxiu looked up at Qin Mu with her little face raised, as if begging for praise. However, Qin Mu shook his head. "No, you can't say that." Xiaqiangxiu's expression froze and her beautiful eyebrows frowned slightly. "Why, master?" Qin Mu said calmly, "How could you encounter an ambush from the Xuanhuan dynasty in Deqin? Furthermore, your mission to the Qin dynasty is a secret operation. The Xuanhuan dynasty does not know about it. With Empress can use prudence and methods, this matter only needs to be investigated to confirm. At that point, you'll only be exposing yourself." After listening to Qin Mu's words, Xiaqiangxiu was stunned for a moment, then nodded in realization. "Master, this slave is wrong." She lowered her head and said seriously. "Then, what should slave say?" Xiaqiangxiu blinked her big watery eyes and asked. Qin Mu said calmly, "Just tell Empress can you truthfully that this time it was all the fault of that fatuous king of Great Qin. Then tell me all about my usual debauchery and how you escaped. No need to say anything else." Xiaqiangxiu thought for a moment, then raised her smile again and smiled sweetly, "I understand, slave." But just as the words fell, a trace of struggle flashed in Xiaqiangxiu's eyes. She covered her forehead with her hands and bit her teeth lightly. There was a hint of hidden pain between her brows. However, within a moment, the look in Xiaqiangxiu's eyes once again turned into the previous anger and hatred. "Qin Mu, just give up on this idea. There is absolutely no way I will be your spy." Xiaqiangxiu suddenly raised her head and stared at Qin Mu, saying in a cold voice. Although her sanity was affected by the mark of the ancient demon clan, she was constantly sinking and degenerating. But every word said and every action taken will still be remembered and will not disappear. When Xiaqiangxiu thought of how servile she had just been, she was so angry that she trembled all over and was filled with rage. She is the princess of Kanyu, the future empress of the Kanyu dynasty. She actually kneeled in front of others like a puppy. This is simply. And Qin Mu now even asked her to fight against the empress. How could she bear it? She would never betray the empress. Xiaqiangxiu said firmly in her heart, completely forgetting that she was still kneeling in that obedient posture. It was as if her body and soul had become the shape of Qin Mu, and he didn't think there was anything wrong at all. Qin Mu glanced at Xiaqiangxiu lightly, with a hint of sarcasm and mockery in his eyes. He didn't say anything, just sat on the chair, picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip, and then tasted it slowly. Qin Mu was not angry at all. He was not surprised by this scene, and he was prepared. He slowly and methodically took out a photo stone and opened the image stored inside. Xiaqiangxiu's eyes narrowed slightly. The screen showed the conversation between her and Qin Mu just now. "What do you think would happen if this photo stone was seen by Xuanhuan?" Qin Mu raised a playful smile at the corner of his mouth and looked at Xiaqiangxiu jokingly. "You." Xiaqiangxiu's pretty face changed, and she looked at Qin Mu with anger. This photo stone contained the conversation between Qin Mu and her, including her promise to Qin Mu just now, which was also recorded in full. "I will explain to Her Majesty the Queen that you forced all this." Xiaqiangxiu took a deep breath and her tone returned to calm, but the depths of her eyes still contained murderous intent when she looked at Qin Mu. "Really? Then how do you explain this?" Qin Mu smiled and took out another photo stone again. It was a scene of Xiaqiangxiu being tied to the gallows and being trained by a group of maids in the Yeting Palace. Then the scene flashed, and a young man appeared. It was Qin Mu. Then there were some unbearable scenes, the absurdity of which was simply jaw-dropping. Asshole. Seeing these scenes, even with Xiaqiangxiu's self-control, her pretty face flushed and she was very shy. Qin Mu smiled and said, "Your Highness Princess Kanyu, you don't want these scenes to spread to the Kanyu dynasty, right? At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Leng Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 42. Hearing this, Xiaqiangxiu's delicate body trembled, her teeth biting her red lips. If these things spread to the Kanyu dynasty, her reputation will be completely ruined. And the most important thing is that in those scenes, she had no intention of resisting, and she even did it entirely on her own initiative. Qin Mu is more like a victim. If such a picture spreads, no matter whether Ji Hongii believes it or not, Xianxu will lose face and will no longer be able to gain a foothold in the Kangyu dynasty. At the thought of this, Xianxu's heart suddenly sank to the bottom, and her pretty face turned pale, as if all the blood had been drained out in an instant. Xianxu opened her mouth, but she didn't know what to say. "Let me go," Xianxu murmured as she closed her eyes, tears rolling down. "Let you go? Ha ha." Qin Mu snorted coldly, stood up from his seat and stood with his hands behind his back. "When your Kangyu dynasty wanted to invade and occupy my country, Great Qin, why didn't you think of letting Great Qin go? When your Kangyu dynasty wanted to massacre the people of Great Qin, why didn't you think of letting them go?" Qin Mu's eyes flashed with cold murderous intent, and he said coldly, "Now that you have done it, you must pay the price." Qin Mu spoke one word at a time, and each word was like a sharp sword piercing Qingxiu's chest, leaving her speechless. Xianxu's delicate body trembled slightly, tears welled up in her eyes, and she said sadly, "Then what do you want?" Qin Mu turned to look at the dark night outside the window, his deep pupils exuding a cold and gloomy light, and said indifferently, "It's very simple. Let there be no more Kangyu dynasty in the world." Hearing this, Xianxu's delicate body trembled, and a strong look of fear emerged on her beautiful jade face. In the past, she would have sneered disdainfully. "Just you? A foolish king still wants to overthrow the Kangyu dynasty?" But now Xianxu no longer dares to think so, because after this period of contact, she found that not only is this man's own cultivation unfathomable, but the power he holds in his hands is also terrifying to the extreme. Like an abyss, mysterious and terrifying. "Don't even think about it? I would rather die." She raised her head suddenly and glared at Qin Mu, her eyes full of determination. "Oh." Qin Mu raised his eyebrows, glanced slightly sideways, looked at Xianxu, and said slowly, "Do you think you can die?" Xianxu pursed her pink lips and remained silent for a long time. Finally, she collapsed to the ground in despair, her beautiful eyes staring blankly at the dark roof. After a while, she slowly shook her head and said in a hoarse voice, "You win." With the demon mark planted on her body, she couldn't even die without Qin Mu's permission. Qin Mu smiled faintly. He approached Xianxu and gently stroked Xianxu's white and soft cheeks. "Be good, do things for me honestly, maybe I can spare Hongyi's life." Hearing these words, Xianxu's delicate body trembled violently, and her originally empty and gloomy eyes suddenly burst into light as she stared at Qin Mu. She didn't dare to leave the passage. "Will you really let Her Majesty the Empress go?" Qin Mu smiled and nodded, then leaned down and leaned against Xianxu's ear, whispering, "Of course, but only if you are obedient. Otherwise, you know the outcome." Qin Mu's voice was full of threats. Xianxu's heart palpitated for a while, but she soon suppressed the palpitations in her heart and managed to stay calm. "Don't worry, as long as you promise to let His Majesty go, I can do whatever you want me to do." After saying this, Xianxu felt as if something was missing in her heart. She is clearly awake now, but she has made this decision. Is this really her? At this moment, even Xianxu couldn't tell what her state of mind was at this moment. She no longer recognizes herself at all. Qin Mu nodded with satisfaction. He straightened up, patted Xianxu's smooth and delicate shoulders, and chuckled, "Very good. You will be glad for today's choice in the future." Xianxu lowered her head. Her mind was wandering and her mood was extremely confusing. An unspeakable emotion grew and spread in my heart. Qin Mu looked down at Xianxu, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. He could feel that the other party was sinking step by step, his mind was gradually losing its resistance, and he was only one step away from losing himself. Qin Mu smiled, and then he took out a communication talisman from his arms. Then he handed the communication talisman to Xiaqiangxiu. This is a communication talisman. You can use it to contact me. Xiaqiangxiu raised her head helplessly and subconsciously took the communication talisman from Qin Mu's hand. Qin Mu smiled even more when he saw this. He stretched out his hand and hooked Xiaqiangxiu's delicate and round chin. He gently pinched her slender and smooth neck and pulled her close to him. The two people's noses were almost touching, and each other's breath sprayed on each other's faces, creating a charming atmosphere. Xiaqiangxiu's beautiful eyes were blurred, and she looked at Qin Mu blankly, with a trace of blush on her pretty face. Actually, I still like your unruly look in the court that day. Qin Mu chuckled, and his warm breath tickled Xiaqiangxiu's fair and tender face, making her shrink back. You. Xiaqiangxiu's pretty face turned red, and she looked away guiltily. Thinking of her arrogance that day, she also felt a little ridiculous. If she hadn't been so arrogant, she might not have fallen to this level. Xiaqiangxiu felt complicated. At this moment, she suddenly felt the big hand on her neck tighten. Qin Mu pinched her neck hard, walked directly to the bed, and threw her on the soft and comfortable phoenix bed. Xiaqiangxiu whimpered, curled up like a kitten, and her pretty face became more and more red. What are you going to do? She was a little flustered, and her little hands subconsciously grasped the thin brocade quilt under her body, and her beautiful eyes were full of panic. Qin Mu smiled slightly, without any extra words, and pounced on him directly. Time flies, and it's already 7 days later. 5 major events happened in these 7 days. The first major event was that on the night when King Mu, Nanfan, and Kang Lang announced their independence from the Qin vassal, all the royal family members and civil and military officials were slaughtered. Blood flowed in the capital, and corpses floated for 10 miles. The 3 kingdoms have been leaderless and exist in name only. The second major event was that the king of Hongyang led his personal soldiers to recapture the King Mu 3 kingdoms, but was ambushed by the remnant troops of the 3 kingdoms. Of the 50,000 elite soldiers, only 800 escaped, and the remaining 40,000 elite soldiers were all buried in the encirclement of the remnant troops of the 3 kingdoms. Even the king of Hongyang himself was seriously injured and died. It is said that his death was extremely tragic and he was torn to pieces by the angry soldiers of the 3 kingdoms. The third major event was that on the day when the news of the king of Henjiang's death was reported back to Chang'an city, the emperor of Qin ordered the execution of a full 44 civil and military ministers. All the ministers who had supported the king of Hongyang openly or secretly were, without exception, executed by the emperor of Qin. For a time, Chang'an city was in a state of panic, and everyone was in danger. The name of Qin Mu's tyrant was thoroughly rooted in the hearts of the people. As for the fourth major event, it was the return of Princess Kangyu to the Kangyu dynasty. It is said that when Princess Kangyu returned to Kangyu city, she was covered in blood and bruises. Since the Kangyu royal family kept a very strict confidentiality, the outside world did not know about this matter except for a few people. Therefore, this matter did not cause much impact and it was quickly calmed down. The fifth major event was that Zhang Luoshan of the Northern Territory, who had been silent for a long time, finally began to integrate the troops of the Northern Territory and recruited strong men from all walks of life after keeping vigil for his father for 21 days. He also took the lead in shouting the slogan that the tyranny of the emperor was abandoned by both humans and gods. In just 3 days, Zhang Luoshan assembled a 500,000 strong Northern Territory army and pointed his sword at Chang'an. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 43. Dakan. In Chang'an City. These successive major events made the people a little overwhelmed. 4 of the 5 major events were related to Dakin, so they were spread widely and almost known to everyone. Have you heard? King Hunyang died in King Mu Kingdom. Is it true? King Hunyang died in the war. Not only that, but also 44 civil and military ministers in the court were executed. It is said that a butcher knife of a top-grade spiritual weapon was cut to a curved edge. Too tragic. That's right. Look at the bloody smell, it's simply overwhelming. I heard that Zhang Luoshan in the North Territory assembled an army of 500,000. The crowd talked a lot, and they were also shocked by the death of King Hunyang. After all, King Hunyang was in a high position and was a powerful vassal king. Now he has fallen into such a field, it's really unpredictable. And it also involved court officials. Although it was not said explicitly, everyone knew it. The death of the king of Hunyang was probably not that simple. For a time, people were terrified by Qin Mu's cruelty and ruthlessness. Although they dared not say it, they had already begun to curse the word incompetent in their hearts. First, he killed the king of Zhenbei, then ordered the death of the king of Zhenbei's daughter, and then killed the minister of rites, the scholar of Hanwen Academy, the messenger of Kangyu and other important officials. Now the king of Hunyang is also dead, and 44 officials in the court are also involved. These things are simply eye-opening for them. They really can't think of how incompetent he must be to do such a stupid thing. What is even more intolerable to the world is that this incompetent monarch not only killed people for no reason, but also forcibly occupied the wives and female relatives of the people who were killed. Such atrocities are simply outrageous. But such an incompetent monarch is the backbone and symbol of the great Qin Empire. It's really chilling. But even so, no one dared to stand up for the king of Hunyang to seek justice. Because everyone who dared to stand up died. Without exception. The dark god guards were like a knife hanging over everyone's head. Anyone who dared to stand up and protest would be ruthlessly harvested by this knife. For a time, the entire Chang'an city was shrouded in haze. The streets were sparsely populated, with almost no one walking around, and it seemed empty and deserted. There were so many things happening in the past few days that they were even more chaotic than the turmoil of the previous period, making them feel exhausted. Especially at this critical moment when everything was in turmoil, no one dared to show up. In the court, Qin Mu had not yet come to court. The remaining ministers stood together in groups of 3 or 2, and were also talking in a low voice. Your Majesty has not attended court for 7 days. I heard that he has been punishing the wives and relatives of the beheaded civil and military officials in the Yeting Palace these days. My old friend, he was about to retire with fame and success, but ended up with his family broken up, even his wife. Alas, the worst is still the king of Hunyang. I saw with my own eyes that everyone in the palace, from the princess to the maids, was taken to the palace. They said it was to protect the king of Henjiang's family, but I think they were taken to the bed to protect them. I'll remind everyone that His Majesty seems to have a special liking for married women recently. I heard that some time ago, even the 4 favorites of King Xiaoao, all the concubines have been taken away by His Majesty. Everyone should try not to let their wives show up during this period. It's really getting too much. Such a foolish act is simply a shame for my great Qin. Everyone should say less. Do you want to follow in his footsteps? I'm not afraid anymore. Anyway, if it goes on like this, the great Qin will have perished before the Kangyu dynasty attacks. It will be the same ending at that time, just a matter of time. The last madness, this is the last madness. Alas. All the ministers sighed, their faces were dejected, and they no longer had any hope for the fate of the great Qin. So many colleagues died overnight, their families were broken up, and this shock was undoubtedly huge for them. They have been thankful for this period of time that they have not had too many connections with King Hunyang. But at the same time, they are also extremely desperate, because even if they are not beheaded by the foolish monarch now, they will not have a good end when the Kangyu dynasty and Zhang Luoshan from the north attack. As for escaping, they have thought about it, but it is just a thought. Now escaping can only mean guilty conscience, and they may even be sentenced to a reputation of treason, so why bother? As for rebellion, there is no need to think about it. Unless they think they have lived too long. The three Qingmu countries, which are far outside the border of Deccan and have powerful people who can kill the Wei, can be completely destroyed overnight. Can they be stronger than these three countries? At least they can survive for a while now, waiting for a turnaround in the future. At this moment, all the ministers only hope that when the Kangyu dynasty occupies Chang'an city, they can show mercy and forgive them, the slaves of the fallen country. Hey, why didn't I see the national teacher come to the court? He is never late. At this time, someone found that there was no figure of the national teacher Du Yulin in the court, and couldn't help but exclaimed. Maybe it's because the imperial master is too disappointed with your majesty, so he decided not to attend the court anymore. Alas, poor imperial master has been working hard for the great Qin, but he didn't expect to have such a foolish emperor. I'm sure he must be very uncomfortable. The king of Hengyang died in the battle, and the great Qin has long been completely hopeless. The imperial master must be discouraged. A young official sighed. Don't discuss it anymore. After all, this is in the court. Saying these words will not discourage the morale of our great Qin. At this time, a gentle voice came from outside the hall. The discussion in the court stopped immediately. The ministers were surprised and looked outside the hall. I saw a handsome young man in white clothes, wearing a crown on his head, holding a feather fan, and walking slowly. King Xiaoao. Greetings to His Royal Highness King Xiaoao. Greetings to His Royal Highness. Seeing this, the ministers bowed and saluted in unison. The visitor was none other than the king of free and easy Xuanhuan. No need to be polite, everyone, Xuanhuan said with a smile. The ministers straightened up, but the surprise in their eyes had not yet dissipated. King of free and easy never participated in the government affairs, so why did he come to the court today? This was strange. However, although it was strange, a glimmer of hope was ignited in the hearts of the ministers, because the reputation of King of Free and Easy was only stronger than that of King of Hengyang. He had shown an unparalleled talent for cultivation since he was a child, and was deeply loved by an ancestor of the great Qin dynasty. He just didn't like power and never interfered in the government affairs, so he didn't have much presence in the court. But he had a gentle personality, treated people kindly, never put on airs, and had a very high prestige among the people. And it was said that when King of Free and Easy was traveling in the Kangyu dynasty in the early years, he had a chance encounter with the Kangyu empress. If he could come forward, he might be able to negotiate with the Kangyu empress. Although they knew that the hope was slim, there was still some hope. Everyone looked at Xuanhuan with hope. When Xuanhuan saw the changes in the eyes of the ministers, he couldn't help but get excited, and his fingers trembled slightly. He knew that his years of forbearance and planning could finally be reaped at this moment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 44. If you want to say who is the happiest in these 7 days, except Qin Mu, that must belong to the free and easy King Xuanhuan. The biggest competitor, the king of Hengyang, died, and his personal soldiers and ministers who stood on his side all died. In this way, he jumped to the second seat of the great Qin dynasty, and it was legitimate. This made him so excited that he almost couldn't sleep, and even smiled foolishly in his dreams. If conditions did not allow, he would have wanted to hold a big banquet in the mansion to celebrate this moment. Xuanhuan had never thought that Qin Mu would kill the king of Hengyang before. While he was shocked, he couldn't help but sigh, "My brother, I know you are stupid, but I didn't expect you to be so stupid." This is simply helping him to eliminate his opponents. As for the king of Henjiang's younger brother, the king of Huainan, Qin Wuji did not take him seriously. Although the king of Huainan controlled the Chinese army, in fact, this army was still managed and dispatched by the Minister of War, and did not belong to the king of Huainan's personal soldiers. The Minister of War was his man, so Qin Wuji only needed one order to get this army without any effort. Moreover, the king of Huainan always respected his brother, the king of Hengyang, so he could use this to make the king of Huainan work for him and fight against the tyrant Qin Mu. Finally, the saintly ancestor who favored him in the ancestral mausoleum came forward to make the final decision, and the great Qin was already within his grasp. Qin Wuji was extremely excited. When he became the emperor of Qin, he could be on an equal footing with the Kangyu empress. I believe that at that time, the Kangyu empress would definitely look at him with new eyes. Maybe he could take this opportunity to become a friend of the empress. Thinking of this, Qin Wuji was so excited that he almost jumped out. But on the surface, he still maintained a calm and indifferent look. Everyone, my great Qin is in danger. Qin Wuji shook his head and sighed. Hearing this, all the ministers were silent. This is a fact, and no one can change it. Even if King Xiaoao comes forward, it is unlikely to turn the tide. This made the ministers feel desperate. However, since our great Qin has come to this point, as the brother of the Emperor Qin, I will do my best to defend the territory. At this time, Qin Wuji suddenly raised his head, his eyes flashing with determination, and said passionately, "Your Majesty, you must not take risks." The faces of the ministers changed, and they hurriedly dissuaded him. With the previous experience of King Hengyang, how dare they let King Xiaoao go to war again? I'm afraid it will be another one without return. Seeing this, Qin Wuji sighed, his eyes full of melancholy, as if he was extremely worried about the future of great Qin. But in his heart, he was ecstatic. Seeing the minister's nervous and scared look, his inner satisfaction almost burst out. He didn't plan to defend any territory, and the words just now were just talk. As expected, the minister's reactions showed that they took him very seriously. This made Qin Wuji very happy. It showed that his disguise over the years was still effective. Qin Wuji couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Qin Shijing, Qin Shijing, you have actively participated in the court and laid out the world over the years, but now it's all gone. And this king eats, drinks, and has fun, and when he comes out again, he can still control the government. Who is higher and who is lower, it's clear at a glance. He continued to pretend to be sad, lamenting and saying, how can this king be willing to take risks? But if this king still does nothing, what about the billions of people in my great Qin? At this point, his eyes turned red. Seeing Qin Wuji like this, the ministers' hearts were even more clenched. Qin Wuji was just about to strike while the iron was hot and say something to win people's hearts. At this moment, a lazy voice suddenly sounded in the hall. King Xiaoao is really concerned about the country and the people. No wonder he is loved by the world. Hearing this voice, the pupils of the ministers shrank instantly, and they were silent. A slender figure walked into the entrance of the hall. It was Qin Mu. With a smile on his face, he walked into the hall slowly, came directly to the dragon table, sat down, and crossed his legs. Qin Mu looked at Qin Wuji with a playful look. Your Majesty, Your Majesty. The ministers knelt on the ground and trembled. Qin Mu ignored them, but looked at Qin Wuji and asked, how did King Xiaoao have time to come to the palace? Are you also here to pay tribute to King Hengyang? Qin Mu spoke lightly, as if the two had a close relationship. But his words frightened the ministers. This sentence is really meaningful. They were afraid that Qin Mu's next sentence would be to order the execution of King Xiaoao. After all, Your Majesty seemed to have killed people. Qin Wuji didn't react much, at least on the surface. He bowed respectfully. Brother, King Hongyang is a hero of the Qin dynasty. His death in battle is the sorrow of the Qin dynasty. But the dead are gone, and the living should cherish the present and revitalize our Qin dynasty. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a shame for the spirit of King Hongyang in heaven? Qin Mu smiled and said lightly, "Oh, I don't know how to revitalize it. Otherwise, how about I give you the throne directly?" Qin Wuji immediately shed a drop of cold sweat and knelt on the ground. "Brother, please don't make such a joke, I can't afford it." Qin Mu smiled slightly and said, "I'm just joking with you. Tell me, what do you want to see me today?" Qin Wuji felt relieved and hurriedly said, reporting to the emperor, "The rebellion is about to happen in the north. I have been thinking about it for a long time these days. Zhang Luoshan in the north just wants to get justice for the king of Zhenbei. How about we give her justice?" Qin Mu narrowed his eyes, looked at him with interest, and said, "Oh? How do you want to give her justice?" Qin Wuji smiled and said, "Brother, you only need to pardon King Zhenbei for his rebellion and bury him with royal rights. In this way, there will be no reason for rebellion in the north." He paused and added, "Not only that, we can also marry Zhang Luoshan. This will not only stabilize the power of the Zhang family in the north, but also allow her to let go of her hatred." "Then who will marry Zhang Luoshan?" Qin Mu raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. "My brother is not talented. He just broke through the Shenzang realm a few days ago. He is willing to go to the northern territory and marry Zhang Luoshan as his concubine." Qin Wuji said loudly as if he was determined to win. "Oh, you broke through to the divine treasure realm?" Qin Mu glanced at Qin Wuji in surprise. He relied on the system's rewards and gifts to reach the divine treasure realm. Unexpectedly, the other party had already reached the divine treasure realm with his own talent. Although this guy is perverted, he cannot be underestimated. Qin Wuji nodded slightly, and then explained, "Although my brother is watching flowers and scenery every day, he has not slacked off in his cultivation. Now he has reached the Shenzang realm and is only one step away from the Yuanshen realm. I believe that with that Zhang Luoshan is still more than enough." After hearing this, Qin Mu couldn't help but shake his head. "I can't believe that you are still a common man." Qin Wuji was slightly stunned, obviously not understanding what these three words meant. He just wanted to use this excuse to leave Chang'an City and complete the final layout. If he could win over Zhang Luoshan, that would be the best. Even if you can't win over him, you can still secretly form an alliance with Zhang Luoshan. Qin Wuji was thinking this way. At this time, Qin Mu suddenly stepped down from the dragon chair and came to his side, with a strange smile on his lips, and said softly, "Your 4 concubines are very good, I am very satisfied. They also said a lot about you, I am shocked." When Qin Wuji heard this, his whole body was shaken, and his eyes widened in horror. "At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid." Author, Leng Mian Bulletin Leng. Chapter 45. Qin Mu's words were like a thunderbolt from the blue, making his mind roar. Those 4 concubines, weren't they killed by him with the death curse a long time ago? How could it be possible to come back to life again? Could it be that they were not under the death curse at all? And told Qin Mu all his secrets? When he thought of this, Qin Wuji's heart sank, his whole heart felt like it was falling into the abyss, his mind was buzzing, and he couldn't think at all. This is related to his most important secret, which must not be known to outsiders. Especially Qin Mu. "Calm down, you must calm down." Qin Wuji thought about it carefully and was extremely sure that he had cast the death curse and killed the 4 women with his own hands. Maybe, this is just Qin Mu deceiving himself. This must be the case, he must be deceiving me, I must hold on. Thinking of this, Qin Wuji calmed down a little, and he slowly exhaled a breath, with a smile on his face. "As long as the emperor likes it, I'm worried that those concubines don't understand the rules and will offend the emperor. Qin Mu nodded slightly and said with a smile, how could it be possible? Those concubines are all smart, virtuous, gentle, and graceful. How could they offend me? Hearing this, Qin Wuji became even more shocked and confused. Is it possible that they really are not dead? Hearing the conversation between the two people, many ministers looked strange. Why did your majesty chat with the prince about women in the court? However, they did not dare to interrupt and waited for the next chapter. It's just that there was a faint foreboding feeling in their hearts. Brother Imperial, I think the top priority should be to resolve the rebellion in the north first. After all, once the northern army attacks Chang'an City, the consequences will be disastrous. Qin Wuji said urgently, while looking at Qin Mu. However, Qin Mu just patted him on the shoulder, the smile on his face not diminishing. This matter is not urgent. Zhang Luoshan in the north will not cause any trouble. What I am most interested in at this time is the women in your house. I heard that there are 3 women in your house who like to wear red. I wonder if I can invite them to the palace to see you. Qin Wuji suddenly opened his eyes wide and stared at Qin Mu in fear. How could Qin Mu know that there were 3 women in red in his house? Does he really know? The more Qin Wuji thought about it, the paler his face became, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. Seeing this, Qin Mu continued with a smile, it seems to be true. You might as well let them come out and show me. No, we can't let him see it. Qin Wuji suppressed the panic in his heart and tried his best to squeeze out a stiff smile. Brother, you are joking. Where did the woman in red come from in the palace? Are you mistaken? Really? Qin Mu looked at him with a half smile but not a smile. Is it because King Xiaoao is reluctant to part with it because he is afraid that I will take it away again? Qin Wuji gritted his teeth and said, Brother Huang is joking. It's nothing for me to give you 1 or 2 beautiful concubines. But there is indeed no woman in red clothes in my house. If Brother Huang really likes women in red clothes, my brother can order someone to find him. No need. Qin Mu waved his hand and sighed slightly, since King Xiaoao refuses to give up his love, I won't force him. After that, he turned around and sat back on the dragon chair. Seeing this, Qin Wuji breathed a sigh of relief. However, Qin Mu then said quietly, I heard that King Xiaoao has been in love with Empress Kangyu for a long time. I wonder if this is true or false. Qin Wuji's face suddenly froze, his eyes flickered, and he didn't dare to answer for a moment. Qin Mu looked at Qin Wuji, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and continued to ask, it seems that the rumors are true. After saying these words, all the officials looked at Qin Wuji. Hopefully he denies this in time. In fact, this matter could be big or small. After all, Empress Kangyu's name was the highest in the entire Tianlan territory and she already had countless suitors. But now the 2 countries are in an antagonistic relationship. On this joint, Qin Mu can make a big fuss about this matter. Then this is a big deal. After all, King Zhenbei has been sentenced to treason for having done nothing. If you admit that you love Empress Kangyu, why don't you just confiscate your home? Qin Wuji was silent for a moment, his lowered eyes trembling slightly. When he raised his head, he had regained his composure and smiled lightly. Brother Imperial has misunderstood. I don't have any thoughts about Empress Kangyu. Those are just rumors. Please be clear to me. Really, Qin Mu heard this and nodded in realization, it seems that I have misunderstood. In this case, I still have something to ask you. Damn it, why is it not over yet? Qin Wuji cursed secretly in his heart, and quickly clasped his fists. Brother, please give me instructions. How does it feel to be a dog? Qin Mu looked at Qin Wuji with a smile, and glanced at the confused ministers from the corner of his eye. The ministers looked confused and did not understand at all. But Qin Wuji's pupils shrank suddenly, his whole body trembled, his face suddenly turned extremely white, and he was dripping with cold sweat. Sure enough, he knew everything. It's over. It's all over. When Xuanhuan thought that everything he had done was known to others, he couldn't help but breathe quickly, and an inexplicable feeling surged through his body. However, he suppressed this feeling and made a final struggle. Xuanhuan took a deep breath, tried to stay calm, slowly raised his head, and stared at Qin Mu. "Brother, I don't understand what you mean." Qin Mu smiled slightly. "It doesn't matter if you don't understand. I can help you recall your memories." Xuanhuan's heart skipped a beat, and a strong sense of uncertainty rose from the bottom of his heart. The ministers were also confused for a while. "I don't understand what Qin Mu means by this." However, before everyone could figure out what Qin Mu's words meant, Qin Mu laughed, stood up, looked down at Xuanhuan, and said lightly, "Do you really think that no one will notice the things you do?" Xuanhuan's face trembled. "Brother Emperor, what on earth are you talking about?" At this time, the hall door suddenly opened. A delicate red figure walked into the hall. "See your majesty." The visitor was wearing a red dress, her figure was graceful, her brows were springy, and her movements were all charming and charming. Surprisingly, it was Xuanhuan's former concubine, Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan's eyes suddenly widened, he looked at Xuanhuan in disbelief, and murmured, You're not dead." The moment he saw Xuanhuan, he felt completely desperate. The other person was indeed not dead. Xuanhuan smiled sweetly. "The slave family is blessed with great fortune, so of course he is not dead. Speaking of which, I have to thank King Xiaoyao for allowing the slave family to meet His Majesty." She prostrated herself at Qin Mu's feet and looked up with a sweet smile, showing her obedience from the inside out. "You actually betrayed me." Xuanhuan's eyes widened and his eyes were blood red. "You are ungrateful." He could no longer hold back the expression on his face and couldn't help but yell angrily. Xuanhuan snorted lightly. "When you wanted to kill us and silence us, did you think you would be where you are today?" Xuanhuan's expression changed. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Snort. Xuanhuan snorted coldly, then she turned to look at Xuanhuan and scolded, "You bitch, why don't you kneel down quickly?" As soon as he finished speaking, Xuanhuan's legs softened and he knelt on the ground like a reflex, without any hesitation at all, as if he had done this action hundreds of times before. Many officials in the hall stared in shock and looked at the scene in disbelief. The dignified King Xiaoyao actually knelt down like this. And he's kneeling down to a woman who appears out of nowhere? They could not imagine, let alone accept such a scene. The ministers were dumbfounded. This development was completely unexpected and beyond their understanding. Who is this woman? He doesn't look like a powerful person. The ministers looked shocked and weird. They suddenly had a feeling that they might eat a big melon today. The moment Xuanhuan knelt down, there was a buzzing sound in his head, the world was spinning, and he almost fainted. At the same time, there was a strong sense of humiliation that stimulated him, making his whole body tremble and his soul almost burning. Xuanhuan wanted to stand up, but he couldn't muster any strength. It was like there was a suction force on the ground, pulling his knees tightly, making it impossible to move at all. The strength of the divine treasure realm that he was so proud of was gone at this moment. All kinds of emotions filled his mind, almost suffocating him. A sarcastic curve appeared at the corner of Xuanhuan's mouth. After getting Qin Mu's permission, she walked slowly to Xuanhuan and looked at him condescendingly. Xuanhuan's body trembled, and his eyes showed deep fear and panic. You. He opened his mouth and was tongue-tied, and it took him a while to say, you can't. The smile on Xuanhuan's face became brighter and she spoke word by word, "What can't I do?" Xuanhuan's forehead pulsed with veins, and he gritted his teeth and said, "I am the prince of the Qin family, you can't." Before he could finish his words, he stopped abruptly. Because Hongluan raised his arm, a silver whip appeared in his palm. Snap! She swung it fiercely, and the crisp sound of the long whip piercing the air suddenly sounded. The tail of the whip hit Xuanhuan's face, leaving a clear whip mark. Ah! Xuanhuan screamed, and his originally handsome face suddenly became swollen. Hiss! When all the civil and military officials in the hall saw this scene, they all took a deep breath. This woman is so fierce. However, the next scene shocked them even more. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mi and Buletin Leng. Chapter 46. There was silence in the main hall. Xuanhuan just lowered his head and his body trembled slightly, as if he was enduring something. The ministers looked at each other in shock when they saw this, completely unaware of what was going on. You bitch, are you the only one who still wants to be an enemy of His Majesty? Hongluan looked at Xuanhuan with disgust. The muscles on Xuanhuan's face were twisted crazily, his fists were clenched, and his knuckles turned white. Reason told him that he must stand up now, otherwise the majesty he had just established would disappear. But the habit he had formed over a long period of time made it impossible for him to resist his body's instinctive reaction. Xuanhuan's eyes were red and his breathing gradually became rapid. Hongluan glanced at him coldly, a look of contempt flashing in his eyes. Then she turned to look at Xuanhuan. The coldness in her eyes melted away instantly, replaced by deep attachment and reverence. She was completely different from the domineering queen-like appearance just now. His Majesty. Her weak and boneless body fell deeply to the ground. The slave family is incompetent and cannot punish Xuanhuan. I hope your Majesty will punish him. She lowered her head and knelt on the ground with a respectful attitude like the most loyal servant. There was still silence in the hall, and all the ministers were silent. This scene is simply too strange. It's not your fault. Xuanhuan said lightly, then looked at Xuanhuan, who was looking down, with a playful smile and a joking tone. Xuanhuan, you really amaze me. The majestic King Xiao of Qin actually rushed to become Empress Kanyu's dog. As a result, others dismissed him. Not only did you not give up, you also found several replacements for Empress Kanyu. Taste. You have really embarrassed my great Qin. At the end of his words, Xuanhuan's voice was cold and sinister, and every word was full of murderous intent. When Xuanhuan heard this, he suddenly raised his head. His pupils shrank violently, with anger, humiliation and many other emotions flashing on his face as he stared at Xuanhuan. He clenched his fists tightly, his body trembled, and his eyes roared scarlet. Xuanhuan, shut up. Who do you think you are? You have never seen Empress Kanyu, how do you know how perfect she is? I am willing to give everything for her. Even if I become a dog next to her, that is my honor. Xuanhuan had already smashed the jar and roared at the top of his lungs. His roar spread throughout the palace, and every minister heard it clearly. The ministers' hearts contracted violently, and they were shocked. King Xiao actually has such deep affection for Empress Kanyu. You can even say this? Combined with everything that just happened, the ministers gradually understood. It turns out that the woman in red is the replacement of Empress Kanyu, that's why King Xiao behaves like this. The ministers' eyes fell on Xuanhuan with extremely complicated expressions. Although they already understand the reason, they still can't understand it because it is a bit ridiculous. The dignified Xiao king was actually willing to be a dog because he loved a woman. After being rejected, he even found a substitute to satisfy himself. This is simply off the mark. The minister's eyes were extremely strange. Xuanhuan also noticed the looks in the eyes of the ministers. He was stunned for a moment, and then roared in embarrassment. "What are you looking at? Don't you agree?" The ministers were as silent as a cicada, bowing their heads and saying nothing. Then Xuanhuan stood up slowly, his face as gloomy as water. He looked at Mu, who was sitting on the dragon chair, his eyes full of hatred. At this point, there is no point in continuing to pretend. It's time for a showdown. Although it was a bit hasty, he had planned it for a long time and it was absolutely foolproof. Thinking of this, Xuanhuan suddenly burst into laughter. "Mu, I admit that I underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have some brains, but..." He changed his limp posture and straightened his back, his eyes full of sarcasm. "It's too late. Now that you're in trouble, I advise you to give up the throne obediently. Maybe I can spare your life." After Xuanhuan finished speaking, the whole hall suddenly became quiet, and you could hear a needle drop. The ministers had different expressions, their thoughts were confused, and they secretly thought something was wrong. Mu looked calm, looked at him for a while, chuckled, and said slowly, "Oh? Are you sure?" Xuanhuan's eyes turned cold and he was about to say something. Hongluan scolded, "Who told you to get up?" Xuanhuan froze, then his subconscious returned to its original state. Seeing this, everyone's expressions became extremely exciting. One second he was extremely domineering, the next second he was as humble as a dog. Is this Xiao King just here to make a joke? The ministers were stunned and speechless. Xuanhuan's cheeks were on fire, and his skillful movements just now made people cry. "If you have anything to say, just kneel down and say it." "I'm listening," Mu said with a stern look in his eyes. Xuanhuan's face turned red, and a mouthful of old blood stuck in his throat. Whose words of rebellion were spoken while kneeling? Is it possible for me to kneel down and beg you to abdicate? Is that still called a rebellion? Xuanhuan felt like his lungs were about to burst. Mu, just wait for me, and I will pay you back 100-fold for today's shame." He gritted his teeth and squeezed out these words from between his teeth. Mu raised his eyebrows slightly. "Really? I'm quite looking forward to it." Xuanhuan snorted coldly, with a sneer on his lips. "Mu, haven't you noticed that the Minister of War has not gone to court for several days?" Mu glanced at him and said casually, "Then what? The Minister of War is my man. He left Chang'an City a long time ago and went to gather all the troops to prepare to attack Chang'an City." Xuanhuan sneered. "Now that my army has gathered, it may be difficult for your imperial city to resist." After saying that, he seemed to be worried that Xuanhuan would die and the net would be broken, so he added, "If you are willing to surrender, give up the throne, hand over the quasi-emperor's soldiers, and abolish your cultivation, maybe I will be lenient and spare your life." Listening to his words, Mu had a hint of sarcasm on his lips. Did Minister of War leave Chang'an? Good. Xuanhuan said with a ferocious smile. He should be leading an army to attack Chang'an right now. If you are wise, hand over the throne and I can leave you a way to survive. Otherwise, I will let you all be buried with him. Mu smiled slightly. He ran away, but his family is still in Chang'an City, right? Xuanhuan was stunned for a moment. Although the Minister of War left Chang'an City, his family did not leave. One is because I am worried that my movements may be too big and may easily attract attention. Secondly, according to their plan, it should not have been exposed so early. They had enough time to transfer. Xuanhuan was still in a daze. At this time, just listen to Mu's faint instructions. Come here, capture all the family members of the Minister of War, kill the men on the spot, and send the women to Yeting as slaves. I will personally punish them. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 47. When the ministers heard these familiar words, Their faces were filled with excitement. I was even more trembling in my heart, sighing secretly that the rumors were indeed true. Your Majesty has really fallen in love with a wife recently. Is this the first wife to be demoted to the court as a slave? I'm afraid it's not 100, but it must be 80. They immediately made up their mind to keep their wives in the room when they went back and not go anywhere. The Minister of War has not gone to court in the past few days, and they know this. But they thought that the Minister of War was too disappointed with His Majesty, so he did not come to court. I never thought it was because I wanted to rebel. Moreover, he conspired with King Xiaoao, who had the least presence in the court, to rebel. All the ministers were secretly frightened. The key is that if you rebel, you will rebel. In the end, you will be exposed by your master in advance before you rebel. Isn't this embarrassing? With His Majesty's temperament, the consequences can be imagined. The ministers mourned for 3 seconds in silence for the family of Minister of War. You said it's not good for you to seek refuge with anyone, but you have to seek refuge with King Xiaoao? Following a good-for-nothing like King Xiaoao, you are really going to have bad luck for 8 lifetimes. However, the ministers also understood that the fact that King Xiaoao was infatuated with Empress Kangyu and even willing to be a dog must be King Xiaoao's deepest secret. If it weren't for His Majesty, they might never know it in their lifetime. After all, who would have thought that the suave King Xiaoao, who has always been indifferent to fame and fortune, would behave like this in private? Thinking of this, the ministers were even more in awe of Qin Mu. Even the deepest secrets hidden by King Xiaoao can be easily dug out. His Majesty's methods don't seem to be as stupid as they appear. At this moment, the minister's impression of Qin Mu began to slowly change. Qin Wuji's face turned red. He had been mad at Qin Mu just now, so in a moment of anger, he actually forgot about this. Qin Mu, I advise you to take back your life, otherwise you are digging your own grave. Qin Wuji shouted angrily with veins popping up on his forehead. Qin Mu smiled contemptuously and ignored him. He looked at the ministers in the hall and said calmly. Everyone has also seen that Qin Wuji, the king of Xiaoao, intends to rebel. What should be the punishment for this crime? The ministers secretly sighed in their hearts. What is supposed to come will come. Conspiracy of rebellion should be punished. Your Majesty is wise, we support Your Majesty in eradicating rebellion. The crime of treason will be punished immediately. All the ministers agreed without even a trace of hesitation. Originally, they had some thoughts about Qin Wuji, but the moment the other party knelt down, they completely lost their thoughts. They really couldn't accept that the emperor they worshipped turned around and was willing to be a dog to a woman. It would be fine if he was being treated like a dog to Empress Kangyu, but he was actually like this to an ordinary woman. Moreover, His Majesty just said that there are 3 such women in Prince Xiaoao's residence. This is really necessary if there are conditions, and if there are no conditions, we must create conditions. If King Xiaoao really becomes the Emperor of Qin, then Great Qin will be completely finished. After such a comparison, they found that the current fatuous majesty was actually quite good. Qin Wuji's face was extremely pale. What a bunch of losers. But he also knew that his image had completely collapsed and could never be restored. Unless, these people are completely wiped out and the court is rebuilt. Only in this way can his secret be concealed. Qin Wuji's eyes flashed with a trace of cruelty. Qin Mu, if that's the case, don't blame me for not caring about brotherhood. Qin Wuji said in a cold voice. When Qin Mu heard this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. Is there still brotherhood between you and me? Qin Wuji gave a cold snort and did not answer. He turned his palm over and took out a jade pendant glowing with aura, and then crushed it into pieces. In an instant, a vast coercion descended from the sky, like the power of heaven, covering the entire Xuanhuan hall. Many ministers suddenly turned pale and trembled all over, as if they were in an ice cellar. Then, a majestic voice echoed throughout the hall. Who disturbs my peace? When Xuanhuan heard this voice, a trace of ecstasy flashed in his eyes. He quickly turned his kneeling position, faced outside the hall, and said solemnly, "The child is unfilial and disturbs the ancestors' rest." But now Dakin is surrounded by enemies on all sides and the situation is critical. It has reached the point of life and death. As the Emperor of Qin, Qin has no ambition to make progress, has no regard for the safety of the Qin dynasty, persecutes loyal ministers, is cruel and murderous, and is addicted to beauty. He is really a fatuous master. I sincerely ask my ancestors to get rid of the foolish king for the Qin dynasty, purify the world, and protect my country, the Qin dynasty. As soon as Xuanhuan said these words, all the officials were shocked. Ancestor. The person who just spoke turned out to be the ancestor of the great Qin royal family. A person who can be called an ancestor must be someone who lives in the great Qin ancestral tomb, and the ancestors who can enter the ancestral tomb are at the saint level at their worst. The stronger ones have even reached the realm of saint king or even quasi-emperor. These existences are the final foundation of the Qin. Of course, these beings are very strong, but they will never attack easily. Because their lives have come to an end, their energy and blood have withered, their longevity has been exhausted, and they are left with only their last breath. Every time they take action, they are undoubtedly overdrawing their lives. On weekdays, he stayed in seclusion deep in the ancestral mausoleum to practice in order to achieve a breakthrough or live another life. It's not just the great Qin, the ancestors of other major forces are all like this. Basically, they don't interfere in the affairs of the outside world. Even if they do, it's often when the country is in crisis and life and death is at stake. Unexpectedly, Xuanhuan actually invited one of the ancestors out of the mountain. At this moment, a huge wave of emotions rose in the hearts of the ministers. No wonder King Xiaoao had always been fearless before, it turned out that there was an ancestor standing behind him to support him. Qin smiled lightly, sitting on the throne calmly, looking at all this with a calm face. Xuanhuan was still kowtowed, his face was pious, his voice was tragic, like a wise man who was concerned about the country and the people, constantly telling the hardships and difficulties of the great Qin, and accusing Qin of various crimes. Ancestor, Qin is ambitious, cruel, and bloodthirsty. If he is not removed, the 10,000-year foundation of the great Qin will be destroyed. Ancestor, the great Qin is in danger. Please make plans early. Please come out and protect the millions of people of the great Qin to get through the difficulties safely. Xuanhuan's anger became more and more intense, and he burst into tears. Suddenly, a suffocating pressure came overwhelming, making it difficult for people to breathe. The next moment, I saw an old man with white hair and beard, and a fairy-like appearance, slowly walking in from outside the hall. The old man's clothes were flowing, and his feet were in the air, as if an immortal was coming to earth. Every time he took a step closer, the ministers felt their bodies getting heavier and trembling violently. Some of them even fell to the ground, crawling on the ground, and respectfully welcomed the old man's arrival. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 48. When the old man stood in front of the ministers, everyone couldn't help holding their breath, their faces full of horror. It was too terrible. Although they were 100 meters apart, they still felt like they were going against the sky and couldn't bear it. Is this a cultivator in the saint realm? Plop. Plop. All the ministers present had their knees softened and knelt down on the ground. Under such pressure, no one could think of resisting, even Hongluan knelt on the ground obediently, unable to make any other movements. Only Qin still sat on the dragon throne, without showing any strangeness on his face. See the emperor. All the ministers fell to the ground respectfully. This old man was the ancestor of the Qin royal family, the emperor of the Qin royal family Qin Tian. In the Qin dynasty, Qin Tian was a godlike existence. According to rumors, he was once a direct disciple of a certain emperor in ancient times, and later followed the emperor to fight for the world, and laid a foundation for the eternal peace of the human race, and his reputation was great. If not for this, the great Qin would not have the prestige and status it has today. But later, this emperor could not resist the passage of time, and his talent was limited. After achieving the position of the sage king, he could no longer make any progress. He could only live in the ancestral mausoleum and try to reduce the consumption of his life in order to make a breakthrough in the future. Qin Huiji saw Qin Tian finally come out, and a hint of pride appeared in the depths of his eyes. This is his last trump card, and also his biggest trump card. Qin Mu, the ancestors have come out, let's see what you can use to fight me. Qin Tian didn't even look at everyone, but just glanced around indifferently, and finally fixed his eyes on Qin Mu. Qin Mu, although I have been in seclusion for these years, I have heard about what you have done. You are indeed absurd and incompetent, and you are not suitable to continue to sit in this position. But after all, your surname is Qin, and you are a descendant of the Qin royal family. You are also my direct bloodline. No matter what, I should spare your life. If you can repent, consciously give up the throne, and never touch power again, I can also let you go. Qin Tian spoke in a calm tone. In just a few words, Qin Mu's fate has been decided. This made the faces of the civil and military officials present change slightly, but they did not dare to speak, and could only lower their heads, looking extremely respectful. Qin Mu, let's see how arrogant you are. Qin Huiji was ecstatic in his heart, but on the surface he pretended to sigh and said respectfully. The ancestor is so perceptive, it is really an honor for my great Qin. Qin Huiji knew that Qin Mu had a woman in white who was suspected to be a saint, but he was not afraid. His ancestor is a saint king. As long as the ancestor speaks up to depose Qin Mu, what does it matter if Qin Mu has many trump cards? Isn't it just obedient to surrender and give up the throne? The general trend is irresistible, no one can save him. Qin Mu smiled, his eyes were indifferent, he didn't speak, and never stood up. He just looked at Qin Tian with a calm look, as if he didn't take him seriously at all. This scene made Qin Tian raise his eyebrows, and anger flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that even though he had come forward, the other party still looked like he didn't care and sat on Mount Tai. This simply didn't take him, the ancestor, seriously. To be honest, he didn't want to intervene in the affairs of these juniors. But Qin Huiji was the junior he valued most, and he was also the most talented, and he was very likely to inherit his mantle. Moreover, Qin Huiji was very filial, and often found some magical objects that could prolong his life to contribute to him. Although it was not much better, it was still a filial piety. Qin Tian was very satisfied with Qin Huiji and believed that he could lead the Qin dynasty back to glory. In comparison, Qin Mu was an unfilial son. He was also incompetent and unjust. He not only executed ministers at will, but also forcibly seized other people's wives and concubines, which was simply undermining the majesty of the Qin dynasty. It would be better for such a foolish king to abdicate early, so as not to completely bury the last bit of the Qin dynasty. Qin Mu, I know you are angry, but you are really not suitable to sit in this position. If you are willing to give up the throne and retire now, then you can still maintain the treatment of a prince, and I will give you enough compensation. Otherwise. Qin Tian's voice gradually became colder. Boom. As his words fell, the whole hall shook violently, and Qin Tian's body suddenly emitted a dazzling light, like a god. This vast and majestic breath swept in all directions, as if to suppress the heavens. In an instant, the air in the entire hall froze, and everyone didn't even dare to breathe, and cast pitying eyes at Qin Mu. His Majesty is probably really going to be finished this time. Not only the group of civil and military officials, but even Qin Wuji also showed a smug look at this time, and shouted. Qin Mu, the ancestor has spoken. If you abdicate the throne, the ancestor may spare your life. Do you want to disobey the ancestor's order? Qin Tian stood with his hands behind his back, looking down, staring at Qin Mu with indifferent eyes, waiting for Qin Mu's answer. At this moment, everyone was waiting. Waiting for the decision of the first tyrant in the history of the Qin dynasty. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from outside the hall. The national teacher is coming to the court. The next moment, the national teacher Du Yulin was seen carrying a coffin and slowly walked into the hall. However, as soon as he walked into the hall, his steps suddenly stagnated, and a trace of doubt flashed across his face. What is going on? Qin Tian was exhausted and didn't dare to use more strength, so he controlled his momentum very well. The pressure was only spread in the hall, and not a single bit leaked out. So the national teacher Du Yulin was outside and didn't feel the abnormal situation in the hall. So he was a little confused at this time. He originally planned to carry the coffin to the court today, persuade His Majesty with his life, and find a way out for Dakin. Who knew that he had just walked into the hall and heard a roar from the hall, followed by a terrifying breath sweeping all around. This breath was so strong that even he had the illusion of being shrouded by death. This made him stunned for a moment, and then he was shocked in his heart. What's going on? Is someone trying to rebel? Thinking of this, Du Yulin was startled and hurriedly stepped forward. However, after just a glance, Du Yulin's footsteps stopped instantly. The Emperor. He can be said to be very familiar with this old man at the moment. Because when he was assisting the Qin dynasty in his early years, he often saw this legendary figure of the Qin dynasty. Is it Xiao Du? Qin Tian glanced at the coffin behind Du Yulin, and a trace of emotion flashed across his indifferent face, and his tone was quite emotional. My descendants are not good enough, you have worked hard all these years. Du Yulin's eyes were immediately filled with tears, and he knelt down hurriedly. The emperor is too kind, this is all the work of an old minister, how can it be said to be hard? If the Qin dynasty did not have you, it would not be as glorious as it is today. You are the patron saint of our Qin dynasty. Qin Tian sighed secretly, I am old, and the Qin dynasty will still need you to protect it in the future. Du Yulin's heart was even more sad, and 2 lines of hot tears rolled down. The ministers saw the scene and were also quite emotional. What a good picture of the monarch and his ministers getting along. However, at this moment, an inappropriate voice destroyed this warm atmosphere. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 49. Ancestor, I don't agree with what you said. Qin Mu stood up from the dragon chair casually and said lazily. This sudden scene shocked everyone present. Many civil servants were even more astonished, and they were a little unclear about the situation for a while. Is your majesty going crazy again? How dare you even contradict the supreme emperor? Ancestor, since Qin Mu is stubborn, let's abolish his cultivation, demote him to a commoner, and imprison him forever. It was Qin Wuji who spoke. When he saw that Qin Mu didn't even pay attention to his ancestor, he couldn't be happier. He was originally worried that Qin Mu would suddenly wake up and admit his mistake in time, but now Qin Mu openly disobeyed his ancestor. This completely relieved him. Qin Mu is indeed as stupid as ever. He can't even distinguish the situation. He is really looking for death. Qin Tian also withdrew his gaze, looked at Qin Mu again. His eyes were cold, and he said in a deep voice, Oh, tell me, why is it wrong what I said? His eyes narrowed, and there seemed to be thunder floating in his pupils, causing the void to vibrate endlessly, as if gods and demons were alive. Qin Mu was not afraid at all. He smiled lightly and wrote lightly. Ancestor, you said you are old, but I disagree. He walked out slowly, walked straight through the hall, came to the bottom of the steps, and looked at Qin Tian in the void. Qin Tian frowned, anger rising in his heart. What does this guy mean? Are you mocking me for living too long? Your Majesty, be careful what you say. National Preceptor Du Yulin hurriedly spoke out, fearing that Qin Mu would say something treacherous and unethical. However, Qin Mu remained calm and composed. He smiled slightly, turned his eyes, scanned the whole place, and said loudly. I have been working diligently and conscientiously over the years to govern the Qin dynasty, and I have worked hard to govern. I have never slacked off, and I have never been greedy for pleasure. Every day I get up early to practice martial arts, go to bed late to deal with government affairs, bathe and burn incense every day, sacrifice to ancestors, pray for the common people, and work hard for the Qin dynasty. Listening to Qin Mu's eloquent speech, the hall was completely silent. Many ministers looked ashamed and embarrassed. In my heart, I said that I have never seen such a shameless person. Get up early every day and go to bed late at night. Take a bath, burn incense, and pray for the common people? You are obviously dissolute every day, indulge in beauty, indulge in drinking and having fun, ignore state affairs, and play songs every night. It is said that he is the most stupid king in the history and has been wronged by this title. Qin Wuji's mouth also twitched, his eyelids twitched wildly, and veins popped out on his forehead. He has endured it for a long time, and if he continues to endure it, he will explode. However, Qin Mu didn't seem to pay attention to the expressions of others and continued. However, even though I am busy late every day, I still can't help but think about my ancestor's condition late at night. After all, my ancestor is the patron saint of our great Qin. Although it is not as good as before, how can I let my ancestor's lifespan decrease day by day? Hearing these words, Qin Tian's eyelids jumped suddenly. All the ministers present also slandered in their hearts. The thing you do most every day is probably sleeping with women. So. Qin Mu sighed and said quietly. Over the years, I have been actively sending dark god guards to explore various secret realms and Jedi places, looking for elixirs and immortal herbs to prolong the life of our ancestors. However, spiritual herbs and elixirs that can extend life are so rare that there has been no great results for so many years. I have been speechless in front of my ancestor. Qin Mu sighed while pacing, his eyes filled with sorrow and guilt. I even regret that in order to govern the Qin dynasty, I delayed the progress of finding the elixir of immortality for my ancestor. He looked around with tears in his eyes. Then the voice suddenly became excited. But fortunately, God pays off. Perhaps my filial piety moved heaven, and finally, I found a treasure medicine, a medicine that can make our ancestors live again. Boom. Qin Mu's impassioned speech was like thunder on the ground, resounding throughout the entire hall. The hall suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Qin Tian, Qin Wuji, Du Yulin and other ministers all opened their eyes and opened their mouths in horror. There is only one sentence echoing in everyone's mind, live a new life? They could hardly believe their ears. Your Majesty, are you sure? Is this true? Can the Supreme Emperor really live another life? Almost at the same time, all the ministers could not help but stand up, looking inexplicably shocked. Everyone knows that once ancestor Qin Tian lives again, the Qin will usher in a new wave of storms. It is even conceivable that from now on, the pattern of the entire Tianlan region will completely change. Qin Tian's eyelids suddenly trembled, and his heart pounded. His last obsession in life is to want to see the scenery from a higher place. However, the problem of his limited lifespan bothered him, making him unable to get over the hurdle. Upon hearing this suddenly, Qin Tian's mood was extremely agitated. In an instant, thousands of thoughts flashed through Qin Tian's mind. But after all, he had experienced many battles and quickly calmed down, but there were waves of vigilance in his heart. Qin Mu, isn't he lying to me? Qin Tian's eyes flickered and he stared at Qin Mu coldly. At this time, Qin Mu slowly raised his head. He first wiped the dry corners of his eyes. Then he gently spread his palms. In an instant, a tree root containing infinite Tao essence and emitting brilliant rays of light appeared in front of everyone. This tree root is crystal clear, as if it is made of jade, and exudes a strong wood attribute, which makes people feel refreshed. Such a strong Tao rhyme. Hiss, what a terrifying power. There is actually a longevity medicine in the world. Just smelling it makes me feel that my realm is loose, it is definitely not fake. There was an uproar in the hall. The ministers were shocked, and a burning light burst out of their eyes. They are all powerful bigwigs in the court. Which one is not a master in the world of cultivation? At this time, feeling the strong Tao rhyme coming from this jade tree root, they are all extremely hot in their hearts, and they can't wait to take it for themselves immediately. Qin Tian's heart is also set off by a storm. Just a tree root, it actually exudes such a terrifying breath of Tao. It makes his cultivation that has not stopped for many years, and even his withered vitality, actually increase a little. Such Tao rhyme is extremely magical and incredible. If you can take it and refine it. Is this the elixir of immortality? Qin Tian's eyes shone with brilliance. He took a deep breath, suppressed the shock in his heart, and looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu smiled and nodded, yes, this is the elixir of immortality I want to give to the ancestor. Qin Tian immediately flew from the void to Qin Mu, looking at the tree root with green eyes, he rubbed his hands and smiled. What's the ancestor, just call me Xiao Tian. Qin Wuji. At the beginning, I gave the future empress her death. I became stronger because I was stupid. Author, Len Mian Buletin Leng. Chapter 50. Du Yulin. The minister in the main hall. Everyone looked at each other in confusion, looking at Qin Tian with a strange look on their face. Just now he was solemn, without a smile, but in the blink of an eye he turned into this, slightly vulgar attitude. Everyone's faces were full of dark lines. Is this really the ancestor of the Supreme Emperor? How do you manage to switch between these two postures easily? Ahem. Seeing everyone's expressions, Qin Tian coughed twice and his face trembled. But he really couldn't restrain his inner excitement and couldn't wait to reach out and grab the green tree root. Muir is really interested, so we'll accept it? Before Qin Mu said anything, Qin Wuji eagerly spoke first. Ancestor, be careful of fraud. He didn't believe that Qin Mu had any elixir of immortality. You must know that the elixir of longevity is so rare that it is difficult to find even one in the entire Tianlan territory. Throughout history, only a few people have received the elixir of immortality, which is very limited. How could it be found by Qin Mu? But at this time, Qin Tian's palm was about to touch the root of the tree. He didn't take anything Qin Wuji said to heart at all. Could it be that he was a deceitful person and that he was a saint king? At this moment, nothing about Qin Wuji or the legacy he inherited was important. Qin Tian only has that immortality elixir in his eyes. However, the next moment, a strange dark purple light suddenly enveloped Qin Tian's arm, blocking his movements. Qin Tian's heart shrank violently. He felt that the aura blocking him was actually stronger than his aura. It was a level of power that was completely above him, and even made him feel like surrendering. This, how is it possible? Qin Tian was shocked in his heart. He is the Saint King. Is there anyone in this world who is stronger than him? Ancestor, don't worry. Don't be afraid of being late if you have a good meal. Don't be anxious at this moment. Just listen to what I have to say. Qin Mu still had a gentle smile on his face, but there was an unquestionable tone in his faint voice. The ministers were secretly shocked when they saw this. Not to mention, His Majesty's imperial demeanor at this moment is unmistakable, and he actually looks a bit like a wise king. Qin Tian couldn't help but stop what he was doing and looked at Qin Mu. Muer, what else do you have to say, ancestor? I'm listening. Qin Mu smiled slightly, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. Ancestor, you just said that I am not suitable to sit in this position. I thought about it carefully and felt. Before he finished speaking, Qin Tian immediately interrupted Qin Mu's next words. No, 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 you are wrong, my ancestor was testing you just now. Qin Tian looked serious and said righteously, if you are not suitable, who should be? No one is more suitable to sit in that position than you. Look at the people in this court, who is as filial and virtuous as you? Is there anyone who is as diligent and loving as you are? Who is as ambitious and ambitious as you? Who is as courageous and courageous as you? Besides you, who else is worthy of being the emperor of Great Qin? You are the chosen one of Great Qin. Muer, please don't belittle yourself. Qin Tian patted Qin Mu on the shoulder, looking distressed. Your Majesty, this. Du Yulin and other ministers were completely stunned by Qin Tian's exaggerated acting skills, and the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Today they have seen what it means to tell lies with their eyes open. Xiaoao King Qin Wuji's face was even darker. Ancestor, wake up, we are on one side. Qin Wuji glanced at the jasper tree root, then at Qin Mu, and his heart suddenly went cold. To be valued so highly by the ancestor, this elixir of longevity must be real. At this moment, Qin Wuji's heart was shrouded in despair. Ancestor Qin Tian was clearly his trump card and backer, but now he became Qin Mu's. Qin Wuji could not describe this complicated mood. He only felt that the front was dark and there was no hope. Ancestor is so complimentary. Qin Mu smiled shyly. Actually, I'm not as good as you said. It's all due to responsibility. After all, in my position, I naturally have to do what I should do. Du Yulin. Ministers. It turns out that His Majesty's shamelessness is the same as his own. Haha, Muer is so humble and polite, he is indeed my Kailan son. Qin Tian stroked his beard gently. Ancestor, I appreciate this most about you. The more he looked at Qin Mu, the more he liked him. He was worthy of being his descendant, and even his character was similar to his. Qin Wuji. Ancestor, don't you love me anymore? Just because Qin Mu has the elixir of immortality, his love has been transferred, right? Muer, please take out the elixir of immortality and let me, ancestor, see it? Qin Tian looked at the elixir of immortality and felt itchy in his heart. He wished he could devour it all immediately, hoping to break through the shackles and reach the immortal road. Elixir of immortality. Qin Mu was stunned when he heard this. Then he seemed to come to his senses and smiled slightly. Don't be in a hurry, ancestor, let's finish the matters in the court first. Qin Tian was itching to get the elixir of immortality, but he didn't dare to force it, because the breath far superior to his was still lingering around him. What's there to deal with? Qin Wuji intends to rebel, which is unforgivable. Just throw him into the heavenly prison and let you do whatever you want. Qin Tian waved his hand and said. Okay. Qin Mu's smile became thicker. Since the ancestor said so, I won't be polite. Come here, take Qin Wuji down, abolish all his cultivation, and throw him into the heavenly prison. In addition, from today on, Qin Wuji's throne as King Xiaoao will be abolished, demoted to a commoner, and beheaded in public on the city wall tomorrow to set an example. Qin Mu immediately judged without mercy. Qin Mu. Qin Wuji's face instantly turned pale, and his eyes looked at Qin Mu with red eyes. Ancestor, Qin Mu wants to kill me. He wants to kill me. He roared, his eyes were about to burst, and he was full of resentment. However, Qin Tian seemed not to have heard it. He held the elixir of immortality with a burning gaze and an excited look. Qin Wuji was dragged down abruptly, looking as embarrassed as a dead dog. The ministers sighed when they saw this. Another prince died. Muir, where did you get this elixir of immortality? Can you tell the ancestor? Qin Tian asked carefully while holding the elixir of immortality. Qin Mu shook his head. This thing was obtained by chance and cannot be reproduced. Qin Tian nodded and was not disappointed. After all, the elixir of immortality was extremely scarce. It was a great opportunity to get one. How could he dare to ask for anything else? With such an elixir of immortality, I will definitely be able to take another step forward within 100 years. Qin Tian's eyes were burning, and he muttered to himself. He was very confident in himself. Although his lifespan was almost exhausted, with the elixir of immortality, he had the opportunity to live another life. By then, he will definitely be able to take another step. Qin Mu said with a smile, then I will wish the ancestor to achieve the great way and the realm of the emperor in advance. Qin Tian's eyes shone brightly when he heard this. Good. 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 Ha ha ha, what a good Muir. He laughed heartily. Qin Mu's words can be said to have touched his heart. Then he could no longer bear the urgency in his heart, and after leaving a jade pendant for Qin Mu, his figure instantly disappeared in the hall. Farewell to the emperor. After Qin Tian left, the ministers knelt down and kowtowed, and for a while, the hall was full of dong 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 sounds. After Qin Tian left, Qin Mu sat back on the dragon chair, his smile gradually subsided, and his eyes were unpredictable. In fact, the elixir of immortality was a section of the root of the ancient tea tree of enlightenment, and the breath Qin Tian felt was the breath of the emperor's weapon from the devouring heaven demon pot. He only used these two things to easily resolve Qin Wuji's strongest trump card. Qin Mu sneered in his heart. What level are you, and you still want to fight me? Then, Qin Mu looked at the national teacher Du Yulin who was still carrying the coffin, and said in a playful tone. National teacher, you are so old, aren't you tired of carrying a coffin?